and he is not experienced on camera.
So this is his first time alive.
Well, that is what he wrote down. He said first time live on camera, and so we'll be able to show him. And as you can see, he's playing something a little bit different than your normal Naya deck. He's got Big Naya.
Yeah, so I mean, the Big Naya strategy isn't exactly groundbreaking. I mean, it's a little, retro, because like 9 months ago, people were really into playing these Farseek decks full of expensive cards like Huntmaster of the Fells, Thragtusk, Restoration Angel, and what have you. And as you might imagine, he's added new hits like Scavenging Ooze. What's kind of interesting though is that he's got one Sigarda, one Aurelia, one Rorick Thar the Unbound, plus just a hodgepodge collection of all sorts of heavy hitters. You know, he's got the Miser's Blasphemous Act, he's got some Garuks, he's got all kinds of boom booms.
He has two main deck Celestial Flare, among other things.
Yeah, and Vorthopede too. Too. Like, as if there wasn't enough fatties.
Yeah, Vorpede's an interesting card. It's very good against Jund. I was actually testing the green-white Huey Jensen Elves deck with Vorpedes in it because I was very impressed with how well it was doing against Jund.
So Scavenging Ooze getting in there. Josh having 3 mana, pretty good mana draw from both players, but not a lot of action.
Yeah.
Huey, though, on a mold of 6, so he's starting from a somewhat of a deficit.
Yep, trying to give...
mold of 5.
Yeah, mold of 5, all the way down to 5, and it looks like Josh is going to be able to get the Huntmaster onto the board. Cavern is naming Angel of... and the only angel really, and I guess we have Sigarda as well, in addition to Restoration Angel.
So this is actually kind of an interesting little...
Wow! Bonfire of the Damned's an interesting card also.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting little turn.
Yeah.
Josh picked up all his cards and put them in the bin.
Yep, absolutely. That is exactly what happened. So
William Jensen, ladies and gentlemen.
Mulligan to 5 is going to be okay. He's still going to be a little behind here.
Ooh.
Except that based on the mana that Josh has, he can only has the 2 colored mana sources, so the Boros Reckoner can't enter play.
And then we have another tap land, but the bad news is that, or not the bad news, the good news for Josh is that there's a Garruk Primal Hunter hitting next turn.
Yep.
Huey, meanwhile, just kind of hanging out, not having triple green.
Yep, and Josh is going to be able to start casting some of these big spells. Begins with Boros Reckoner to get a board presence.
What do you think makes him decide to play Boros Reckoner instead of Garruk first? Is it just the threat of Dreadbore maybe, or Rakdos' return?
That's possible. Yeah, the threat of Rakdos' return I think is a lot higher, especially. Well, at this point, I think that the Rakdos return would have been for 3, so he would have gotten to keep the Garruk because he had 4 cards in hand. But now that Huey is going to be able to make it for 4, he can just throw it onto the board. In any case, he's going to start the Beast Factory. Todd Anderson entering the battlefield.
Todd Anderson is a beast.
He is a beast.
These are going to be some brutal beats if he doesn't hurry up and get something going on here.
Yeah.
Thragtusk is not bad though.
Thragtusk is a good place to start. Almost always, I find that that Thragtusk is, even when you're trying to think of other options that could maybe be better, Thragtusk is just always the best option. Which is not my favorite thing ever. There's never ever a time when Thragtusk is the wrong choice. Especially here when you get to draw 5 cards off of it. Josh is going to cast Farseek. He is also a Farseek deck. Most people have accepted that Jund is the best Farseek deck, and so you don't see as much Bant Control or Big Naya anymore. Seeing this sort of, as you mentioned, throwback to these big spells that you can't cast out of Jund, like Aurelia the War Leader, to be able to put the finishing touches on a victory.
Now, there is a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel here. I mean, or I guess a silver lining for Huey. Josh with a full grip, maximum hand size, but his Garruk at 1.
Yep.
So at the very least, Huey will be able to, at least he gets Garruk off the table, which is something. Yep,
he has a Rakdos Key Rune, which is going to let him make 3 mana for the Bonfire for 1 that he has in his hand to clear that Garruk off the table. Which isn't so bad, but not ideal by any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Huey does have 4 cards, but Josh has 7 and a lot more mana.
Yep, and a bunch of his heavy hitters, namely Sigarda, which is going to come down right now, and Rorick Thar are particularly big hurts against the Jund deck.
And from the looks of it, Josh has another Garruk to refill again.
Wow. So Thragtusks are going to trade in combat. There's Sigarda, the host of Herons from Avacyn Restored.
She's pretty good.
She is very good. I actually had misread her yesterday. I saw a green-white. It wasn't even a Bant hexproof. I guess it was just a Celestia hexproof deck had a Sigarda in play, but also then cast a copy of Renounce the Guilds, and that means that you have to sacrifice your own Sigarda. It's only abilities opponents control.
Brutal.
Make you sacrifice.
Not a great combo, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
not ideal, but was able to pull out the victory even still. Meantime, Huey has a centaur disguised, or a beast disguised as a centaur, attacking for 3. That will trade with one of the beast tokens on the opposing side of the board.
It's interesting, Sigarda, even so big that it can't be mortarsed.
Yep.
And it takes a
Even if
long
it could
time.
be targeted or overloaded, I suppose.
Well, you still get to overload it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the bond, like, what he is 1 mana away from being able to, or no, not 1 mana. He needs, I guess, 9 mana to be able to mortars and bonfire for 1.
So we see Celestial Flare from Josh Moe on a blocking Rakdos key rune, and Sigarda is going to get in for 5. Once that Sigarda starts hitting, it's very difficult for the Jund deck to deal with it. Another beast coming from the second copy of Garruk.
So many heavy hitters.
Yep, and Huey is stuck on the 2 green mana, even if he wanted to cast his own copy of Garruk Primal Hunter.
Yeah, definitely a tough day for mana for William Jensen.
Yeah, he definitely needed to get onto the board quicker, I think, and be able to keep pace with the early aggression that Josh had presented. And by early aggression, I mean I think around turn 6.
Oh,
So-
good.
So
Miracle
there's
bonfire.
another bonfire off the top. Huey's bonfire for 2 to 2 for 1 Josh Moe being sort of one-upped by being a fireball for 9 here. And William Huey Jensen is going to be quickly down 1
It's
game.
hard sometimes to look at a bonfire and not feel the pain that the U.S. national team felt a year ago.
Absolutely, yeah. In the most famous GIF ever of a Magic event, perhaps one of the top, 5 moments on video for Magic, when Brian Kibler sort of just throws his hands up in the air and says, "All right, if you got it, you got it," and they indeed had it.
The look on Louis. See,
Luis's face is, if you were to, the great thing about that GIF is that you can watch 13 different people. You can watch that GIF 13 times in a row, and it's a different experience each time. Because
Yeah,
Luis's
exactly.
expression of just
or
like,
Forsyth,
yeah, Forsyth,
BDM.
BDM behind him going, wow.
absolutely. Yelger, the Yelger walking away from the table.
Yep, one of my favorites is the Joe Panaccio reaction where
Yeah.
he just is like watching, is like, oh man, we're going to be in a tough, oh no, and then you just do the classic facepalm. So
Yeah.
that is a classic moment, and always reminiscent whenever you see a fireball out of the Jund deck off the top. Even this year, when the French national team did it in games 2 and 3, not with Bonfire, but with Kessig Wolfrun in game 2 and Rakdos Return in game 3 to end games very quickly with pseudo fireballs.
Absolutely.
So moving to the sideboards here, I think that we are pretty used to William Jensen's list by now. If you would like to see more of Huey's list, we have it from the top 8 from this morning, as well as a deck tech coming up with not me, but with you, Mr. Patrick Chapin. You did a deck tech
Sounds
talking
awesome.
about, it does sound awesome. I can't wait to
Sweet.
watch it. To discuss not so much the deck Jund, as I'm sure we're all used to the deck Jund, but the strategy in general, where it fits into the big picture of the metagame, all with the framework of next level deck building.
Sure. Absolutely. Besides, at the end of the day, who doesn't want a few minutes of Baby Huey's time?
Absolutely, and anytime you get a chance to listen to 2 Hall of Famers talk at the same time, I would be happy to watch that. So we're pretty used to his sideboard at this point. How do you feel about some cards are fairly obvious. I think we were bringing in Liliana of the Veil, Doomblade certainly going to come in. A couple of them less sure. For example, Duress can pick off a early Farseek or a late Celestial Flare or a Garruk occasionally, but it's not exactly clear because that's mostly for the control decks, and this is decidedly not a control deck.
Yeah, I don't know if I would risk something like Duress.
But Rakdos Return also for control decks.
And this deck's just, particularly if you're on the play, I think Rakdos' Return might be real good on the play anyway.
Right. So what about Josh's sideboard? What does he have for the Jund matchup?
kind of nothing.
Okay.
He's pre-sideboarded against Jund.
He is pre-side. That's what it appears he has done.
He
is
might
has
have
pre-sideboarded.
Luxodon Smiter.
That's true.
I mean, maybe he could bring in a Luxodon Smiter. Like, first of all, he doesn't want Blasphemous Act.
Right.
So he probably wants at least one Luxodon Smiter instead of the Blasphemous Act. Beyond that, maybe there's some other creature that he could cut for another Luxodon Smiter.
Yeah, his options are
Maybe Celestial Flare. I don't think Celestial Flare is that good.
Agreed. I think that
That could be another Smiter.
the options. I think that he just wants to have more threats and less answers against the Jund deck. His sideboard includes things like Pithing Needle, Renounce the Guilds, Mizium Mortars, Blind Obedience, Sundering Growth, Rest in Peace, Loxodon Smiter, and a copy of Rolling Trembler, none of which are standouts in the Jund matchup. I think you're right. I think he came into this tournament already pre-sideboarded against Jund.
Yeah, if anything, Celestial Flare and Blasphemous Act could become Smiters. I guess there's the outside chance that maybe he wants a Renounce the Guilds to give him more Huntmaster Olivia protection. But it does slightly clash with his Boros Reckoners and some of his Legends.
Yep.
And his own Huntmasters, for that
And
matter.
his Sigarda, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Renounce the Guild's Sigarda, not exactly the combo we're looking for.
Farseek, just absolutely fantastic, though. The best card in Josh's deck, and the thing he wants most.
Yep. As you see, his second land was Slayer's Stronghold, a card that Craig Wesco popularized in his articles over the past week or so, as well as at the World Magic Cup with his 2-1 record. We didn't get to see much of the standard decks played by the top 16 competitors in the world, in the championship, but I feel that the Boros deck that Craig played is actually being a little underplayed right now.
Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, it's another example of one of those two-color aggro decks with Burning Earth.
Yep.
You know, like, it seems like Brian Kibler's version has been the one that really took off, but who's to say that that maybe Boros, White Weenie with Burning Earth might not also be similarly positioned in the metagame. Wesco certainly did well in the tournament.
Absolutely, and I actually think that the sideboard options that you gain from White are significantly better than the sideboard options that you can gain from Green. As we see, Pillar of Flame is going to take out a Scavenging Ooze, and it's going to be followed up by a Farseek of Huey's own.
Oh, definitely an excellent turn for Huey.
Yep.
He really needed that Farseek to catch up from Mo's Farseek, and the fact that he was able to, in the same turn, also deal with the Scavenging Ooze, definitely just a good situation.
Yeah, we've talked about how Scavenging Ooze, not necessarily the card you want early, but definitely the card you want late. And that being an example right there. As we see Thragtusk on turn 4 from Josh Moe. Huey's going to get a chance to parry back with a 5-drop of his own if he sees one. Oh, he's just going to Bonfire for 4 here.
Which actually doesn't come out ahead. I mean,
yeah, he deals a couple damage to Josh in the process.
Josh net gained 1 and has a Beast. And they both spent a card and 5 mana. They both spent
5 mana. That's exactly right. So the Beast is going to become a 5/3 Vigilance Haste creature. Josh not with any remaining giant spells he wants to add to the board. He's got a couple of 2-mana instants in Renounce the Guilds as well as Celestia Charm. Huey's going to play a Thragtusk of his own, and Celestia Charm is going to quickly exile it and make a Todd Anderson token. There's Slayer's Stronghold on the left.
Mr. Anderson getting ready to block.
Yeah, Slayer's Stronghold was really the key piece of that Craig Wesco deck. It had 4 copies of the Slayer's Stronghold. It was really centered on that card in particular.
Absolutely, and there's those Smiters that we talked about.
Yep. Josh bringing in the Smiters just as more size, being able to tangle with these 3/3 Beast tokens all the time.
Yeah, and that's why these Naya decks have traditionally been reasonably well positioned against these Jund decks. Is the Jund decks, and whenever the Jund decks have to do things like beat fast aggro or beat control decks, sometimes they end up playing too many of the wrong types of answers for a deck just full of nothing but boom booms.
Yep, and Huey looks like he's got options. He's got Olivia. The Bonfire of the Damned is not really an option, but he's also got a Dreadbore and a Scavenging Ooze, among other cards. But he's only got the 5 mana, so he's not going to be able to play the Olivia plus another spell.
Yeah, I mean, now Dreadbore on the Luxodon Smiter is kind of an intuitive play. You do have to at least ask yourself, though, I mean, could he have something even worse for me? I mean, this guy's got Sigarda in his deck.
Right.
Obviously, you don't want Dreadbore for Sigarda, but you gotta respect the guy's range.
Yes, exactly. Like you don't know what could be in his deck. He could have and does have things like Aurelia, Rorik Thar, other difficult to answer permanents. Not to mention the Garruk Primal Hunter that he saw earlier. So here's Aurelia, the War Leader.
Absolutely.
Aurelia
already somewhat. He's Aurelio regretting
Oh,
his
dear.
line of play last
That
turn.
that is
So-
a pun so bad Ruben Bressler would be proud of it.
Scavenging Ooze, big enough to push through the Aurelia, but certainly not big enough to race.
Absolutely, yeah. The Aurelia just by itself is a bump in the night every turn with flashback. So the Scavenging Ooze is going to have to put in not just double duty but triple and quadruple duty here, gaining life, playing defense on other things that Josh could cast with the Slayer's Stronghold,
Yep.
as well as trying to pressure Josh's life total.
He does have Rakdos' return at this point, so he could empty Josh's hand and leave Josh with no more options. However, he is looking at a real short clock.
He's also seen a Loxodon Smiter already.
Yep.
And so if he goes for the Rakdos' return, and Josh happens to have a Smiter, he could just be dead.
Yeah, that's true. But no guts, no glory.
That's right, and we're going to head into the red zone for 3. Rakdos' return for 3, it looks like, is going to be the play from Huey to empty Josh's hand of a pair of Renounce the Guilds and a Celestial Flare. Meanwhile, still has the Aurelia in play, and
So
we'll
now
see what
if-
Josh can muster.
If Huey draws a land next turn, he can play Olivia, shoot Aurelia, and then untap and gain control of it.
That's right.
Establishing control over Z board.
Now, Garrett Primal Hunter might throw some problems into the mix, though.
There's
And
that
he's going to
Ancestral Recall
immediately-
just to undo the Rakdos' return for the most part.
Yep. And he kept in the Blasphemous Act. I certainly saw that as one of the cards that he has in his
Interesting.
hand. Huey looks like he drew Mizium Mortars to be able to finally deal with that Aurelia, the War Leader, after falling to 9. The Scavenging Ooze is going to put Huey up to 10, as well as attack for 4, dropping Josh down below life in terms of, for the first time this game at least. Huey might be able to be gaining a little bit of control back in this match, especially because Josh gave up such a problematic permanent for Huey to try to deal with in Garrett Primal Hunter just to be able to draw 3 cards. Now, drawing 3 cards for 5 mana, that's Jace's ingenuity. You know, I'll never pass up Mysteries of the Deep, but it seems like just being a Beast Factory would have been a better...
Probably, just give him more different angles of attack. Although, he has drawn a Celestia Charm, which will give him an answer to this Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, Josh, I think, has drawn a few too many answers and not enough questions, which I don't think is where he wants to be.
Particularly since he needed that Celestia Charm for Olivia.
That's exactly right. This Olivia, he does not have a ton of answers, does Josh Moe. We've already seen a couple of Celestia Charms get used. Blasphemous Act is an answer, technically, although that will kill his own Loxodon Smiter.
I'm kind of surprised. Why didn't he just... he was 1 mana short
Yeah.
of being able to Blasphemous Act. Well, no, there's... The Olivia's in play.
Oh, the Olivia counts, so he could have tapped out for the Blasphemous Act to just deal with the Olivia immediately. What he did do was cast Loxodon Smiter and give it haste and vigilance and attack for 6 to drop Huey to 5. So Huey is well within Reckoner Blasphemous Act range, should he be able to find one of the 3 Reckoners in his deck, as well as any number of creatures off the top of his deck. Basically are just Phage the Untouchable at this point, because the +2/+0 and haste is going to be very good for Josh. Meanwhile, Huey puts his racing boots on, swings in with the Olivia, dropping Josh to 4.
Now, what do you think about this play instead of shooting the Smiter and putting Josh at 3? Because he's planning on Doomblading the Smiter, and if Josh is at 3, then Huey's only 2 mana away from killing him with the Bonfire in his hand.
I think that he wanted to make sure that Josh used that Slayer's Stronghold on the Smiter just just to make sure that he isn't at even a lower life total. The Huntmaster of the Fells, obviously the ideal play when you have a Bonfire of the Damned and 5 mana.
So now Huey just wins.
Yep. Huey's going to be able to cast this Bonfire of the Damned for 2, and not only taking out Huntmaster, but also taking out Josh Moe in the process, and we're going to go to a 3rd game.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you're putting so much damage on him, but I think in that spot, when you got as much of an edge as Josh had, you got to just trade your Blasphemous Act for Olivia. Blasphemous Act isn't very good for you anyway,
Yeah.
and Olivia is Huey's best card.
Absolutely. I think that that paying 8 mana might seem like a steep price, but it's well worth it if you're able to keep a flying, pinging machine off of the board that, oh, by the way, can steal your big monsters later in the game. So, looking back at the sideboards, I don't think much changes if with sideboard being on the play and being on the draw.
Yeah, mostly just who goes first.
Yep, absolutely. Huey, being a Farseek mirror, Huey's going to have the advantage in Game 3. So did you gain any other insights on the Jund mindset when you got to talk to Huey earlier today?
So the most interesting things I found were first, him and Reed have obviously spent a lot of time discussing Lifebane Zombie because of the fact, I mean, the majority of people in the format play Lifebane Zombie.
Yep.
Reed and Huey are not proponents of it because they find that it just dies incidentally too easily sometimes, where you just make a Pillar of Flame live that wasn't going to be, or it takes one from an Olivia ping on the way in, or it ends up not being able to trade with anything you want, and as a result they just didn't value the body enough considering how often they found that it would miss. In addition to that, the removal that they have, it always looks like they're playing the same deck every week, but they actually are changing numbers. Like one week, 1 Doomblade, another week, 2 Doomblades, and sometimes 1 Putrefy or 2 Dreadbore, or they keep
some
changing.
weeks Lilianas are in the main deck, and some weeks they aren't. That sort of thing.
Absolutely, lots of little changes. Plus, that's to say nothing of how much the sideboard switches around. You know, like, do you play things like Slaughter Games or Staff and Nin or Vraska or lots of cheap removal? What are you playing? You know, Sweepers, Barter and Blood. What do you,
And recently, Golgari Charm became one of the newest staple in the sideboard, thanks to Burning Earth, which is certainly the card keeping Jund from winning every tournament these days. As we saw this morning with the red-green mirror match finals, both decks having Burning Earth in them. So, speaking of Burning Earth, do you think that going forward, the more traditional Huey Turtle Duke Jund can just play Golgari Charms in the sideboard and call it a day? Or do you think that they have to adapt in some other way, some meaningful way in the main deck?
I think you still should adapt. I don't think 2 Golgari Charms swings it nearly enough. As Huey said, his worst matchup is red-green, Dragon Master red-green, and 2 Golgari Charms is not even close to swinging the matchup, and you can't just overload. Playing like 4 Golgari Charms even isn't going to radically change things, because that's not the only problem. Burning Earth is just their best card. There's also, Hell Rider, Thundermaw Hellkite, and just a game plan that's really good to start with.
Yeah, it's not just the card Burning Earth, it's everything that they have to put you in a position where Burning Earth is just a big burn spell, basically. Things like all of their haste creatures, every creature in that deck either creates more mana or has haste. So even when you use your elimination spell on it, they've already poked you for 2. So by the time Burning Earth lands, you're already at 8. You can only cast a Thragtusk for no life. You can only cast...
I do wonder, what if you just play 3 Evolving Wilds and like 5 basics? Like 2 forests, 2 swamps, 1 mountain, 3 Evolving Wilds with 4 Farseeks.
Well, we've also seen on Magic Online, Stephen Mann, Pro Tour Gatecrash top 8 competitor, top 8 at a premier event by basically cutting the number of lands, 25, down to 21, replaced 3 Blood Crypts and several of the other lands with Caravan Vigil and basics.
Wow.
And so that gives you you can Farseek for your swamps and your mountains, and you can Caravan Vigil for any of your basic lands, meaning that all of your Thragtusks and your Huntmaster the Fells, instead of dealing you 5 or 4, are now dealing you 0 or 1.
As long as you have enough green mana, maybe Caravan Vigil is just a much better Evolving Wild because of the ability to occasionally accelerate from things like Tragic Slip or Doomblade.
Yep. So Josh is going to be the one on the mulligan to 6 this game, after Huey took a mulligan in Game 1. Both players have a Farseek. Josh is going to get Temple Garden, and Huey pondering.
That's kind of hot. I could get into a Caravan Vigil.
Yeah? You like that?
Yeah, kinda. I don't love it, but I'm not sure I would kick it out of bed. But
Sure.
That's kind of a...
It's replacing lands. It's not like you're replacing business spells.
Dude, I'm not even sure I don't want to replace business spells. All I want is to draw enough land.
That's
Other
fair.
than to draw 2. But. So, Josh this time is on the mull to 6. He's up to 4 mana.
Looks
no,
like he's up
not.
to
He
3.
missed.
Yeah.
Brutal. But he doesn't play the Smiter.
No, he doesn't play the Smiter. Instead, he's going to keep open. What is he keeping open here?
Nothing.
Nothing in particular. Meanwhile, Huey's going to have all the mana he could ever want with 2 Farseeks. In this game, he's going to get up to 6, going to be able to cast a Bonfire of the Damned for 3 from his hand, which I believe he has a copy
We're
of.
missing. Why would you not play a creature there? He's got Scavenging Ooze, he's got Smiter.
I didn't see what else he had in hand. He could have a Celestia Charm.
He has Scavenging Ooze,
Didn't
Smiter.
look like he had, yeah, I don't know.
Draws the land, plays the Smiter.
Had it the whole
He
time.
probably just, accidentally
Yeah.
shipped the turn because he was thinking of Restoration Angel.
He might have also anticipated a Rakdos return.
Yeah, but then if you anticipate the Rakdos return,
then you just keep it, yeah.
Yeah, and you play the Angel,
you play the Angel
and then you
instead.
surprise him with the Smiter.
Or the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, because I think what you need to do is play the Scavenging Ooze the turn you have 3 mana, then the Restoration Angel the turn you have 4 mana, and surprise him with the Smiter, and suddenly you have this massive board.
Yep, even in the face of a Rakdos return, you're still in a very good spot. But now we have an Olivia Volderon.
Olivia Volderon is definitely one of the most badass Baneslayer type creatures in the game.
Yep.
That's like, I mean, if you don't deal with it, you're gonna have real trouble doing anything.
Back when Titans were in Standard, people were not real impressed with Olivia. But nowadays, the best thing you can do with 6 mana, really, is cast Olivia and ping something for 1.
I mean, I don't know. Speak for yourself. Some of us were crushing with Olivia from the Titan eras.
You know what? You're right. Some of us are old school when it comes to the Grixis colors. I'm not nearly.
So Josh did not renounce the guilds when he had the chance, and now, yeah, okay. So now
he will after he gets in a little bit of damage. He wanted to get Huey down to 12. Being at the lower life totals, he thinks favors him because he has the better top decks, but Huey has so many cards in his hand that I'm not sure that the fighting from a lower life total is going to be an advantage for Josh. I think that Josh needs to survive as long as he can to be able to get those big top decks into play. As you can see, Huey can race just fine on his own, dropping Josh to 8 and attacking for 6. Let's see if he has one of the many burn spells. There you go.
There's
a Rakdos return
William
Fireball.
Jensen, advancing to 5-1, keeping the dream alive.
Absolutely.
He needs to win 1 more round, actually. He needs to win 1 more round to be able to draw into his 5th consecutive SCG Open top 8.
Yeah, I mean,
unbelievable.
Well,
statistician. Do we have any? God, we need to. Wait, you're the statistician. Don't we need to have? Yeah, Ruben.
Yeah.
Don't you got to be able to find us the answer of if has anybody ever top 8'd 5 SCG Opens in a row that they've played in? You know, they play in 5 Opens in a row and top 8 all 5.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that people have definitely come close to having 3 in a row. I think probably 4 in a row during a Jerry Thompson streak or a Todd Anderson streak.
5 in a row. I would have heard. I'm sure we would have heard of such a thing.
Probably.
5 in a row is
a monstrous number.
A lot.
If anybody out there on Twitter has any knowledge as to anyone who currently has 4 in a row, who has a streak